Watertown City Council meeting for November 6th of 2023. The roll has already been called. We already started the meeting at 4:45 to go into executive session. We are now here for the official meeting. And before I pass it off to my friend Mark Tracy, pastor at Cornerstone Church, I want to just say something that he pulled me aside yesterday at church and said that he prays for me and for the city council and for the leaders in Watertown and around the nation. And I just want to say how humbling that is on behalf of all of us to have people who are praying for us. That is such a powerful thing that we can do for our community and much needed and something that I know that all of us want to foster here. So thank you for doing that. So he said he does it every day anyway. So I said, let's have you do it in an official capacity in front of a bunch of people. So Mark, would you please start us off in prayer? Please rise for this.
Lord Jesus, you prefer my honest prayer to a fancy one, a heartfelt prayer before a professional one. And so my simple prayer is that we welcome your Spirit into this room, that you bless the award recipients and the festivities tonight, that you guide our decision makers, that our decision makers would know your voice. They would hear your voice because they're connected to you, and that they would listen, and that 100% of their decisions are guided by that voice. So bless this meeting, bless Watertown. May our homes be whole. May we not have divorce, eliminate addiction, and raise up our kids with wholeness. In all these things I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chair will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Jurin, seconded by Councilman Peters. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now is the time for open forum. If there is anyone here who would like to address the council on something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. Last call. I'll close open forum. We will move right into our first order of business, which is a great activity. It is the Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities would like to recognize 5 individuals who are providing exceptional service to the community. We'll go to, are you the chair on that board, or Assistant Chief Ryan Remmers, who has long been on the Mayor's Committee, is going to read off some of the proclamations. I will stand up here with the awards, and as your name is called, you can come on up. You can bring anyone who you want. Do I have a volunteer for an official photographer? Okay. So City Manager Mack will take official photographs for the city's history books, but anyone in the family, you are more than welcome to take as many pictures at any time that you want. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 5 awards that we're going to hand out tonight. The first is the Outstanding Employee with a Disability. Would Jamie Shell please come forward? While she's making her way up front, I'll tell you this award is recognizes an employee with a disability for outstanding achievements in competitive integrated employment. This award is being presented to Jamie Shell. When Jamie Shell and Shahara Rowe first started working together, they were on the tail end of the pandemic. Jamie had just graduated from Southwest Minnesota State University with a degree in psychology. She was living in Millbank, and after she had exhausted several ideas for jobs in the area, Jamie took a leap of faith and came to Watertown to meet with Mike at Trav's Outfitter. The pair hit it off over a conversation about SMSU, where Mike's wife was an alum. The rest is history. Jamie applied for and was hired as a part-time cashier and moved to Watertown with her 2 cats. Jamie has been at Trav's for over a year now. She is one of the very first faces you see when you walk into Trav's, as well as the first voice you hear welcoming you to Trav's. Jamie is fiercely independent and strives to continue to remain that way. There is so much light in her eyes as she loves her job and loves those she works with. She is willing to pick up shifts where needed as long as she can get a ride to work. There are really not enough words to use to let you all know how awesome Jamie is.
Any other pictures? Yeah, you want to come on up? Come on up. Don't be shy. Okay, do you want me in it or not? Okay.
Third crowd.
And we have lots of volunteers to take pictures.
Do you want to just the family, or do you want us in there too?
Two shyest guys aren't getting in.
Yeah.
Okay, we got some
Yeah.
more.
Smile, this is a big deal.
That's a crew.
1, 2, 3. Cool, I got a new phone now.
Just smacked into a new phone just like that.
All right, one more time.
Congratulations.
Next up, I believe Teresa Hillis from the Prairie Lakes Wellness Center is here on behalf of the Wellness Center. If you could come forward, please, Teresa. And while she's making her way up here, this is the Outstanding Employer Award. This award recognizes an employer for outstanding achievements in improving employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And of course, this award is being presented to Prairie Lakes Wellness Center. The Wellness Center is the employer of the year because they make it possible for individuals to work when those individuals may have a hard time coping and being successful in a less supportive environment. Employees are made to feel part of the team and look forward to coming to work each and every day. The Prairie Lakes Wellness Center offers employment opportunities to several individuals with various types of disabilities, including physical, mental, and developmental. Randy Sattergasky, facility maintenance technician, is one of the main reasons that individuals with disabilities are working in a very supportive and non-judgmental work environment. His background in psychology and sociology is certainly a plus. Randy always does what he can to make every individual successful. The entire staff treats all people with compassion as part of their routine daily business. Congratulations to the entire staff at the Prairie Lakes Wellness Center.
Thank you. Well, I'm just, on behalf of Randy and the Wellness Center, we just think it's a blessing to have you as part of the team, and we're just grateful. Thank you.
Actually, that's a good point. Sorry. I didn't give you a chance to say anything.
I'm good.
Okay, if you think of something, you let me know, okay? All right.
Next up is Heidi Hochstetter. I believe I saw her back here with a few little people. Come on, Lisa.
She could come up.
Yeah, come up there with you.
Are you going to come up?
This is the Outstanding Transition Services Award. This award is given to an individual or organization in recognition of extraordinary contributions to providing and developing a transition program to assist students with disabilities as they transition from school to the adult system. Contributions should span 5 or more years. This award is being given to Heidi Hochstetter. Heidi currently is a voc rehab counselor for Watertown and the surrounding areas. She works with schools in Watertown, Castlewood, Hamlin, and Esteline. Heidi has worked with transition-aged youth in varieties of career over the past 10 years. She is a WHS graduate and most recently obtained her master's degree at SDSU. Heidi has worked with students in Jennifer Burns' employability class at WHS for the past 2 years. Coincidentally, this class just came and toured the police department, I think Friday last week, so we loved having you there. Heidi meets with these students weekly to work on employment skills and preparing them for employment opportunities. Heidi always brings a positive attitude and develops a great relationship with each and every student. Her students love the fact that Heidi has gone above and beyond to set up tours at various businesses. Thank you, Heidi Hochstetter, on behalf of the Watertown Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities, for all you do in providing services to our students and adults with disabilities in the Watertown community.
I would love my two daughters to come up.
What do we got for names? What's that?
Isabel,
Izzy. Okay, Isabel.
Jayla.
Jayla. Isabel and Jayla. Actually, do you want me out of the picture? Okay, any words?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Congratulations. Nice job. All right, next up, if Lindley Halligan could come forward, please. This is the Outstanding Citizen with a Disability Award. This award is given to an individual with a disability in recognition of outstanding achievements in overcoming a disability and for the promotion of independent living and employment opportunities for other individuals with disabilities. This award is being presented to Lindley Halligan. Lindley is being presented this award for her compassion and service in volunteering with several veterans organizations in the Watertown community. Lindley is an active auxiliary member of the Watertown Chapter 1054 VVA Group and Post 750 VFW Ladies Auxiliary, along with American Legion organizations. Her commitment and support for these organizations includes placing flags on veterans' graves for Memorial and Veterans Days, gifting the American flag to community members on Flag Day, distributing poppies to the community, making tray favors for VA hospitals, volunteering at fish fries, bell ringing for the Salvation Army, and honoring veterans at local parades, and so much more. Lindley is a graduate of Watertown High School. She worked with Grandma's Kitchen since she was 26 years old. Additionally, she has worked various jobs at Bonanza, the Elks Club, Lakeshore, and Hamlin School. Lindley states the experiences she encountered in her life are memorable. She does not like the word help, but takes pride in being independent. Lindley has overcome many struggles by not dwelling on the issues and says, "You just put up with what you got." Lindley feels volunteering is the right thing to do. She says she wants life to challenge her, and she wants to learn from all of those moments. Congratulations.
I want to add one more thing. So Lindley and I have been friends since the 1980s. We attended high school together. And I remember one time in particular, Thursday Night Live, she pulled me aside. I was just about ready to become mayor, and she said, "Keep your head on straight, Reed." So I've been trying. Okay. Anyway, so there you go. Anyone else come up here?
Rick, Mom and Dad,
Yeah, come on up.
Jen, Jamie, Lindley, Mo.
Yeah.
Take a picture first, please. Thank you. Nice big smile.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
I don't think that's very obvious.
Thank you.
All right, the fifth and final award is the Distinguished Service Award. Would Sarah Faust please come forward? This award is given to an individual or organization in public recognition of extraordinary contributions to helping the employment and empowerment of people with disabilities. And of course, this award is being given to Sarah Faust. Sarah currently holds the position of director at the Cottington County Welfare Office. Her motivation and dedication to the Watertown community has been extraordinary. Sarah's exceptional efforts in promoting the empowerment of individuals with disabilities has been outstanding. She has played a crucial role in improving the accessibility of social services for all individuals, regardless of their abilities, by creating Cottington Connects. Additionally, she worked toward designating Cottington County as a resilient community, along with being a moving factor in the operation of 612 Flats, a transitional home for emergency housing. Sarah says she loves being able to watch the community come together to solve problems in areas of need. Sarah is a graduate of Watertown High School. She has served this community in various social work roles over the past 20 years. She is involved with her community with various events such as town players and Boy Scouts. Sarah is more deserving of this award for her commitments, professionalism, and passion served to the Watertown community. We would like to congratulate Sarah on all of her achievements and the success she has inspired for the community of Watertown.
Yeah, you'll have to get in there, Gary, too.
Yes, you do.
I don't. I can get a picture with your phone. Okay.
Any words, Sarah?
Hold on, there's more pictures.
Any words, Sarah?
It's just been an honor.
Okay.
I would just like to wrap this up by just making sure that everybody understands that these award recipients will be going out to peer, their names will be going out to peer and in a statewide kind of competition to see if any of our local people here might get the Governor's Award later this winter. And then I have the longer version of the nomination letters that I'll grab up here that I'd like to give to the 5 recipients too, because this was kind of an abridged version that we read here. But some of the people that you all work with and for thought really highly of you to write a nice long letter. So.
Before we go, Deputy Mayor Tupper would like to say a few words. And he's not only deputy mayor, but he's a member of this committee.
Thank you, Mayor. It's truly been my honor the last, it's been a little over 2 years that I've sat on the committee for this, and I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of great things that have come out of it. And we, as individuals without a disability, get up every morning and we don't worry about doing our things. But I'm just amazed at the people that do have such a positive outlook on life, and they make things just work out no matter what. So at this time, I'd like to ask everybody to stand and give everybody a round of applause, please.
All right. We will be at ease. If anyone wants to leave, you sure can. You can stay and watch the festivities of the actual agenda item. Otherwise, we'll give you a couple minutes to exit the room.
I know, that's what I'm worried about. The rest of my food in the car.
Sarah, congrats.
Thank you.
Heidi, congrats.
Yeah, El Nino is
December through February.
Oh, geez.
It took him forever to.
He needs to change his angle, so those ceiling tiles are not his bathroom.
Okay. Well, do we want to tell him?
No,
Okay, back to order. We will commence with the 2024 budget appropriation, an ordinance for the 2024 budget, city budget appropriation, first reading, and number 2, enterprise funds budget. For both, we will go to our city manager, Amanda Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. This is your annual budget appropriation. We did the budget hearing a couple of weeks ago where we went in detail. The only change, I know I emailed you about 2 changes. One of them, I emailed you all about the chamber. That actually was included in what was proposed. It was on a different page than the outside contributions. The second change was related to the police department and grade movement for the patrol officers and the sergeant positions to make sure we're addressing compression. The total cost of that was about $35,000 that was added to the budget. Other than that, there are no changes from what was presented 2 weeks ago. And myself and Finance Officer Bob Ziem will stand by for any questions.
Thank you much. This is just a first reading, so we will open it up for council questions, comments, anything. Just because we have a second crack at it doesn't mean you don't have to ask anything tonight.
Well, I would, just as a reminder, if you do want to make changes, we would have to have a special meeting because this does have to be approved by the end of November, or has to be submitted by the end of November.
Okay. Anything, council? All right, moving on. Go to public hearings and second readings. Item A is a packaged liquor license renewal for Four Amigos LLC Cowboy Country Stores. We'll go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien, for more information.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, for this first one, this is a renewal of their current license. The reason this one is before you is because they did have a violation. They did not need to be present as they were here for their malt beverage license. So this is, they both the violation lasts for the whole year. So if there's any other questions, I can try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you much. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item?
I'd like to know what the price was on that.
I'm sorry, you can testify if you would like. But you can testify by coming up to the microphone, but you have to identify who you are.
Oh, okay.
You have to come up to the microphone, miss.
Okay.
And please identify yourself, and if you represent anyone other than yourself, then let us know.
My name is LaVey Schwalm, and I represent just my company. So
And what company is that?
I work with the city people that want to know. So
What's the name of the company?
it's called Wanting to Know.
Okay.
So my question is what was the increase on the liquor license? What was the price?
There was no increase, it's just a renewal, the annual renewal, and I believe the package ones are 1,500 annually.
Be on
Yep.
1,500? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve the renewal? Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Peters. Any discussion on this, council? Councilman Peters.
Finance Officer Bob Zine, could you just explain a little bit more in detail about the violation and what that was, just for the benefit of everybody?
Yep, so this was a underage alcohol purchase. The violation took place on February 15th of 2023.
Any other council questions or comments? Councilman Tupper.
They were in front of us how long ago, Kristen?
They would have been here, it would have probably been May.
Okay,
Yep.
so they were here in May.
Yep.
What we've found in the past is we were making them appear twice. So once they appear the first time, they are not required to appear the second time.
That's
Just
cor-
that the differences of the licenses come and due, so.
Yep, that's correct. And we still do send them a letter just to let them know that this one is up for a public hearing, so it's up to them if they want to be.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the renewal. We will go call by roll. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper? Bueller? Danforth?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Durant?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We're on to item B, a liquor license renewal for Discount Liquors. Finance Officer Bob Zine, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Before the council, this is also a renewal. Same situation is in front of you as a public hearing because of a violation. The violation was in February 15, 2023, also for an underage alcohol purchase. So again, they were in front of you prior for their malt beverage renewal. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve the renewal? Motion made by Councilman Shetty, seconded by Councilman Bueller. Any discussion on that, council? Hearing none and no comments, we'll just do a voice vote. All those in favor of renewing the license, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C is the second reading of an ordinance amendment to Chapter 18.01 of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown, removing language related to streets and avenues being plowed on specific days, as well as adding language for declaring a snow emergency. Public Works Director Heath Von Eye will provide us more information.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading for this ordinance amendment, and as we've vetted through a work session and through the first reading, some of the nuts and bolts behind this change include giving some latitude as far as the administrative function of how we clear the snow from our city streets, and then more specifically, part one of that section of city ordinance, it retains the inability to park on emergency snow routes when there's 2 or more inches of snow that's accumulated. But it does remove the specific days in which streets or avenues will be plowed. It removes that from the ordinance. The street avenue day of week function can still be an administrative way that the street superintendent carries out the plowing. This just formally removes it from the ordinance. And if you recall, it was to give us some latitude to gauge that if we're, for example, done with avenues in the middle of a day and we want to roll onto the streets, we can have the latitude to do that. Of course, we would provide the proper guidance to the public through our public service announcements. And so everybody's aware of what the situation is for the snow plowing plan. Further into the ordinance amendments, it creates the snow emergency declaration and what that means, and how that also then restricts parking from all the other streets once a snow emergency is declared. And again, the intent would be that administratively, through the city manager, public works director, street superintendent, we've got some latitude then to declare a snow emergency in certain sectors of town. And that would be defined on a clearly defined map that the public would have access to, and we would share again through our PSAs. So they knew which quadrant of town or which ward we would be having that snow emergency declared in. The second part of this amendment simply addresses what currently is a prohibited parking on boulevards, full well realizing that that's not an ideal location to try to park in the middle of a winter in South Dakota, but also realizing that having the ability to park there for those that don't have any other off-street parking resources, we simply made an amendment to accommodate for parking on boulevards once a snow emergency is declared. And for those few occasions in the winter months that would be useful, this ordinance amendment allows people to do so. The last part of this, again, is defining the snow emergency, who's authorized to declare, which is the city manager or their assigns, and expanding on the prohibition of parking during a declared snow emergency. Those are the highlights of the ordinance amendments. City Manager Mack's been heavily involved in these discussions and the planning and programming of what this should look like, along with myself and of course our street superintendent Rob Bainan, who is here in the crowd and will stand by for any questions.
Thank you. Does either the city manager or street superintendent wish to speak at this time before public hearing? Okay. I'll open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? Hello, sir. Just say your name.
Jason Blatchford. I live 306 2nd Street Southeast here in Watertown, just about 3 or 4 blocks south of here. Lived in the same house 27 years. Haven't had a problem. I knew all the time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday was streets. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays was avenues. Then, I'm not like most people where we have a garage or a driveway. Dan's been over to look at my situation. I don't know how many of you have researched this plan, but, what about the people that don't have a driveway and don't have access to this kind of stuff? Sure, you say, well, you can park in the ones downtown. Well, yeah, easy for you to say because, you can go 3 or 4 blocks. Because I got to go 3 or 4 blocks to park at a, citywide place uptown. I don't know what the big deal is. Like I said, 27 years, hasn't been a problem. I know it's probably been a problem around town with cars but not being moved. But just here to say that I'm not for this. And, if we're going to start doing this, then I think we ought to go with, let's start looking at the people that don't shovel their sidewalks, blocking that where they're on a corner lot and they're blocking the handicap accessible to where people in a wheelchair can't get down the sidewalk. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
And is it Mr. Watford?
Blatchford.
Oh, sorry. Would you spell that for me?
BLACHFORD.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I got that right. All right. Public hearing is still open. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing, open it up for council action. Do I have a motion to approve the ordinance amendment? Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Jurens. Let's open it up for discussion. Council, Councilman Tupper.
I think looking into this, I think we all realize that there's going to be some growing pains here and that we may have to do some adjustments and because parking on a boulevard, if you don't have a driveway, Rob's going to leave too big of a ridge up there and you're not going to get on your boulevard. But, you know, I think it's going to be a learning curve for all of us. You know, I don't think they're going to go out there and start towing people's cars away right away. I mean, we're going to have to try to play with this a little bit and fine tune it if we have to. But I do thank you for coming up and giving your concerns because they are legitimate. So, especially when you get into the core downtown. So, thank you.
City Manager Mack, do you have something to say?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, the plan is not to change existing operations. I think Rob and his crew will still follow the streets and avenues, plan that we always have. The language modification, one, allows us, if we need to have flexibility to do something different, that we can, and two, brings the language in compliance with how we're already operating, especially within the areas that are not the core area of town. So I just wanted to provide that clarity. There is no plan to change operations. Just when we need to have flexibility, it gives us the ability to do that.
Public Works Director Von Eye.
And then to further clarify, I believe my map is showing shared to teams. These north zones, east zones, south zone, and lake zone, as we've labeled them and as we think about them administratively, as far as Rob and his crews are concerned, these areas currently do not follow the current city ordinance language. We do not go into these areas and do streets and avenues on odd, even days. That is strictly only applied to what's known as the central zone on our map here, the purple area. And so this ordinance amendment also brings us into compliance in the current way that we presently operate. Because right now, again, we're not meeting the ordinance in those outside zones, if that makes sense. Part of the effort behind wanting to amend the ordinance was not only to give some administrative latitude in snow emergency situations, but also to bring us into compliance with how the ordinance currently reads.
Thank you. I'm going to break protocol here and just say, for Mr. Blatchford, who showed up here to testify, what does this mean to him?
If that was referred to me, Mayor?
Sure.
Yes, certainly.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Blatchford?
I assume that his location is within the central zone here based on the address he described. Well, it would be in the purple central zone. And so if, let's say, 80-90% of our snow events, we continue with the process we've always done because we don't see a need to expedite it or change anything, there would be no impact. Superintendent Bainen's PSA that he puts out would state what it typically does, except it would be specific that the central zone would be plowed odd or even street or avenue, and those north, east, south, and lake zones would not have that language applied to them because, frankly, they never have. They just go out into those zones and plow the entire thing. So the effect for the purple area is there really wouldn't be any unless there were a certain circumstance that we needed all cars off all streets at that point in time, and then that snow emergency declaration not following the odd and even could be triggered if the conditions warranted it.
Thank you. Councilman Peters.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A lot of what I was going to say has already been covered, and City Manager Mack described it well. Where I struggle with this is we're trying to give staff the autonomy to be flexible. What we're going to see probably more pushback on is if it's snowing really bad on a Monday and they get done with the streets at 3 o'clock. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Public Works Director Von Eye, but the plows have to go home, correct? They're not rolling into avenues right now.
Correct, based on the current ordinance language.
So I think more people would have a problem seeing those plows go home on a really snowy day and wondering why they're not continuing to plow versus moving into avenues. So, Mr. Blatchford, I absolutely appreciate your remarks, but I think this gives staff the flexibility they need to make Watertown a little bit safer.
Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just to piggyback off that note there, in the previous discussions, that question was asked, and I believe, I don't know if you want to have Superintendent, Rob come up or not, but I don't believe they do go home. I believe what they do is they move to another portion of the city to be able to continue their services. I don't think they go home early, so just want to make sure we get clarification on that point first.
City Manager Mack, did you want to answer that, or Street Superintendent?
Well, Street Superintendent Boehning can give a much more detailed information. You are correct. They largely would roll into other areas. It really depends on the situation and the type of event and how many hours they've put in. But they would not roll right into avenues.
Thank you. That is true. We do try to get other areas. In situations where we can get more contractors to help, we're able to roll through more areas. Like, let's just say a scenario where we did get done at 3 in the afternoon and contractors are helping in these other areas, it could be possible to have other areas that are done already because of the contractors, but it really depends on how many we can get. It's not always consistent what we can get for contractors. We had a change this year recently. One of our contractors got hurt just recently and has a major issue with his leg, and he might not be able to run a motor grader this winter. So that could change our plan a lot. So this does give us the latitude, like our director said, to be able to do stuff that we normally couldn't do under the current ordinance. And also it does correct a lot of what we do on the outskirts, the south, east, north, and the lake zone, like Heath said. It allows us to plow those, and it does allow our police to ticket and tow on both streets and avenues in those areas, where currently if you're in, say, Northridge, and we're doing the whole thing, I mean, people on, say it's an Avenues Day, and people can still leave their cars on the streets and not get ticketed or towed. And they have, I don't know of any that don't have big driveways and garages up there to park in. So it does hamper some of our plowing on the outskirts like that. But in the purple zone, the central zone, for the most part, that is an area with smaller garages, smaller driveways, not as much room, other than in the Conrady area, which is northeast of that central zone in purple.
Councilman Shetty, the floor is still yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that understanding on that. Is it possible to take the purple zone, the center part, and separate that out? Let's be it. I mean, I know you can do it if you have the freedom to word it however you want. If it's not, if the ordinance gets changed, but is there a way to word the ordinance to where there still is, let's say you keep the purple zone, the avenues and streets separated out, and then wording it to where the outskirts can be done on any given time? Is that, even though you're doing it that way, but you're saying there's a challenge because technically you can't ticket or tow because it's not worded? Can we, that might not be for you per se, but it's a question I have for whomever. Is that even a possibility?
Throw that open to whoever wants to answer.
Yes, absolutely, Mayor, Councilman Shetty. I would say certainly this could be framed in any capacity that the council wishes. The only reservation I would cite in my mind, I guess, as you mentioned that, is that in part, one of the things we're trying to do is create some administrative latitude in this ordinance. And while that might full well be the intention today, 6 months or 5 years from now, maybe that intention evolves on how that central area is managed. Maybe there are a rare few snow events that we do want to mix that up on how we administrate the snow plowing efforts. So the more specific language that we put into an ordinance, the more our hands become tied administratively, is the only caution I would heed to anything like that.
Councilman Shetty?
And thank you. Yeah, the reason I bring that up is, it's been mentioned that, and I get it, when you look from an aerial view, you see if you count driveways or you count, which you guys did, I believe, takes the time to look over neighborhoods, and this was brought up at a previous council meeting already, but it would appear that most places, and it was mentioned a handful or 8, 10, 11 places have got enough driveway or maybe don't have driveway or garage, and yet I had mentioned in the previous meeting that there was 4 on my block alone that would look like they fit they all have what it looks like a garage and a driveway in the back alleyway at least, and yet all 4 cases I'd cited that there was, from either a 5-unit apartment building that's only got a driveway and a garage, so you can't put all 5 units parked on that driveway, to my particular house, for example, having 4 kids in high school at one point at the same time, and having potentially a couple cars more, we wouldn't have enough spaces in the back. So I mentioned a few of those cases. Since then, today, Mr. Branchford brought up his concern, and your house, I believe, has no back alley. It has no garage. There's no other point of recourse on his case. He doesn't have an alley. So it'd have to be trying to park in the boulevard, if not, I guess, or maybe it's a chance for neighbors to be more neighborly. I mean, that is a legit possibility, try to work together to try to get our cars off if it were to happen. But I'm just bringing up that there are other cases in Ward A. I had someone bring up to my attention that there's a house with 5, up by the Votech area, there's 5-bedroom home, there's 5 young men living in that home. They all 5 have their own vehicle. The driveway holds 3. So there's going to be, and that's in Ward A, showing a garage, showing a driveway. I just know that there's more cases than we think as far as when we say few or handful. No disrespect to anybody, but there's more. And just the whole boulevard, I don't know if that's really even seen as a legitimate answer or not. I'm not sure. Again, it's possible. I'd have to, like in my house, for example, if anyone has a situation like mine, there's trees in the boulevard, so we can't really get a vehicle on there. So we'd have to use the neighbor's boulevard, I guess, and if they're okay with that. So anyway, there's just challenges that I can see the theory behind it, and will it speed things up? Well, I guess we had discussed this too. It might speed it up by 2 or 3 hours. Hard to put a time on it, but you might save an afternoon or a partial afternoon. And hey, I get it. 2 or 3 hours on a snow event makes a difference. But what's the exchange? If we're going to gain 2 or 3 hours, if that's a legitimate time frame, we may save to people in their parking scenario where they may have to walk a couple, 3, 4 blocks, or 5 or 10, or I guess if you're over by the Votech, I'm not sure what kind of public parking is up there. So these are just my concerns. I've said them before, but I just want to bring up a couple more examples up. So,
Councilman Beeler. Well, actually, Street Superintendent, did you want to address anything that Councilman Shetty had?
I really don't have anything to add to that. I understand what you're saying there. I think our count, you're correct on what we counted up for, like driveways or no driveways, no garages, that type of thing. Access through the alley, possibly just in a backyard. But you're right, the number we did come up with was very small, but it didn't take into account, we had no idea how many cars park in each residence. So I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, we were aware of that, but we had no way of counting that.
Councilman Beeler.
Thank you, Mayor. Superintendent Bannon, couple of questions. First off, if we declare a snow emergency, how much time would somebody have to move their vehicle if they typically would not have to move it? If it was, we're doing streets and avenues like we do now, and all of a sudden we decide, well, we got extra time, let's go plow some of these avenues. How much time would they have? How much warning would they have? And exactly how is that communicated to the public?
In the situation like you're talking, general, we're still leaving the 2-inch rule in there. So folks would know if we get 2 inches of snow, and we haven't called a snow alert yet, and they're forecasting snow to fall yet through the night, that's going to automatically trigger it. In the case where it's less than 2 inches of snow and say an inch, but we still have wind and stuff, we can automatically, based on this new ordinance change, call a snow alert either for specific areas or the whole community at different times. But we'd like to give folks 12 to 24 hours. PSAs we've put out based on the forecast, and it's a little risky doing that, but it's based, we go through the National Weather Service, and generally I check AccuWeather as well, and the Weather Channel, believe it or not, that's a good source as well. But if they're all matching, I can't even think back to a time when we missed. And when they're saying 6 inches and it's 100% chance, and all three of them are saying that, we just put out the PSA early. That's the nature of the beast here. That's a problem, a bit of a problem. We want to give folks as much of a heads up as we possibly can. But in reality, there's times probably where they get less than 12 hours.
And then if somebody is parked on an avenue and you're doing streets on that day, and then you've got this extra time to do avenues, would we ticket those folks that would be parked on that avenue?
I think based on how we'd put the PSA out, so like in the central area of town, the purple, if we still plow that as we currently have been, just like streets and avenues, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday streets, and the opposite avenues, we can still do that. We'd just be stating it in the PSA how we're going to do that. So it's not necessarily hurting those folks. If there is times where we could get extra help from the contractors and we really tackle that central zone, we could call a PSA that everything gets off the streets and avenues, and we plow it up in half the time, possibly. But it could be problematic at times if we did do that. And like Amanda said, we would still try to follow this streets and avenue way of plowing it, so it's not so hard on folks.
My next question, Superintendent Bain, if somebody does, I don't foresee a lot of this happening where people actually park on the boulevard, but in the event they did, and you plow it, and you got the big windrow all along the boulevard, what happens? I mean, how do we deal with that situation?
I really don't believe we'll see a lot of that. Brookings does allow that, and when they call a snow alert, you can't park on any roadway at all. And they do allow folks to park on the boulevards, and I'm sure there's situations where it probably would work, but in the case of Councilman Shuddy's situation where there's trees and stuff in the boulevard, that's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works Director Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. Superintendent Bain, and you mentioned the city of Brookings. I know you've done a lot of extensive research on this with other communities. Could you speak briefly to your findings as far as the no parking on any streets kind of a approach that some of the communities take? Besides just Brookings, what did your research find in that realm?
We did find that there was communities that do odd and even type streets, like you mentioned earlier about that. There is communities that do that, or specific zones. They'll say at certain times they'll plow a specific zone that they call out. And it's somewhat risky. Like if you put a time frame on a zone, let's just say this north zone that's in the orange up there, and we figure that whole thing takes 4 hours in a 3-inch snow event. When you call out a specific time frame that it's going to be within, it's a little bit risky if you have breakdowns or you can't get enough help, or unforeseen things that would keep you from getting done with that zone and into another area and the amount of time you need to be. But there is communities that do streets and avenues, or not streets and avenues, they call them. I didn't find anybody in South Dakota that was doing streets and avenues per se. They were doing even and odd streets. So somewhat similar. And then there was also areas that plowed by zones. We did find some of those as well. I don't know if that answered your question, Heath.
Yeah, it helps. I was just wanting to provide some more context behind some of the research that you performed.
We did very deep research on this, and we've actually, over the last couple of years, been back and forth on this, and we've talked with other communities about this. But for our community, every community is different, the way their town's laid out. Our central zone, that purple there, up to up to about 10th Avenue, it's kind of the older way of town where you have smaller garages, smaller driveways and stuff. You get north of 10th Avenue, especially in the northeast up in the Conrady area. That's when we started to see the expansion of 3-stall garages and large driveways where you can fit a lot of vehicles in there. And we tried to break this out too in that area to where the zones make sense as far as how we plow them too. So we still would attempt to plow streets and avenues in the purple zone or the central zone, we call it.
Councilman Danforth.
Yeah, I thought you forgot about me. I'm over here eating leftover Halloween candy. Gained about 8 pounds since I've been here all by myself. But I just got a comment to make on it. I as well as everybody that has spoken, I got the same concerns. I do see, without question, I see the value in some of the changes, the latitude and the flexibility that it gives us. If I'm hearing correctly from Public Works Von Eyck and with Director Bainan, right now we're not expecting large changes. That any changes or altering from what we've been doing is going to be the exception. I think human nature is going to be that we're going to have a few hiccups here and there, but I honestly don't believe that our gain from doing this too often, if there is a lot of problems within areas of the community, I just don't see us not altering what we're doing. I think at some point you say, we're gaining a little bit periodically, but look at the problem it's creating, and we go to some kind of an altered plan or a plan B, so to speak. And maybe that's eventually going very rigidly back to what we've historically done, which unto itself, it's understood by most, but that's not without its problems too. So, I do think there are some inherent concerns. I have as well, but I am going to go on the basis that I trust our staff in that if there's issues, they're going to work to resolve them, and that potentially could be that we just go back and we do what we know works. I don't know. So I get it, and I agree with everybody on the concerns, but I just don't see us, if we've got problems, just continuing to accept those problems. I think there will be change. That's it.
Councilman Jerns.
Well, we've heard testimony from Councilman Schutte and Mr. Blatchford, and I'm just simple. I usually need an example to figure things out. So I don't know who would, if Rob's up here, if Heath's here. I know Mr. Blatchford lives on a street, and I know his situation. So an example of us plowing the streets in front of his home, instead of parking 3 or 4 blocks away like our examples were in the original, when this was brought up the first time, wouldn't he be able to, just go around the block, park on an avenue? Or will he not know which we're doing, streets or avenues, and he's just stuck? Ian, question mark.
Okay, in a situation such as that, we'd put the information out in the PSA. Our goal to start out with this is still in the purple area. We're changing the ordinance to eliminate the wording of streets and avenues on certain days, but we would still plow that core as that was still the case. So we would try to do streets on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and avenues on the opposite days. Where it does give us a little latitude, which could be if we have extra help from contractors where we could speed things up, and let's just say we can cut that in half for the amount of time to get it done because we have these extra freed up contractors, then we might put out a PSA that says, hey, we're going to work on this whole core. We're going to focus on that and get it done and knock it out. It does free our hands a little bit, but in that situation, if we follow the same way we currently plow, we can plow it that way. We can say, hey, we're doing, it's a streets day, it's a Monday, we're doing streets in the core, only in the core, in that central purple zone. But in that case, if we say, hey, we're going to do the north and east zone at the same time, but we're doing the complete streets and avenues in the north zone and streets and avenues in the east zone, we'll just only do streets in the central zone that day. So like if it's a Monday, you know. So we'd still follow that. And I can only see situations where if we can get the extra help and we've gotten everything else done, things went smooth, that we could roll right into some avenues the next day too. The other thing that this does too, in these outskirts, I call them outskirts, but everything outside that central zone in the purple, a lot of times folks won't move their cars because they knew it was the opposite day, and we'd still plow around them. They just couldn't get ticketed or towed. The problem is then you have a big, hard ice-packed thing of snow. And there's folks that just don't care and makes it difficult for everybody. It's also very hard on our equipment when we go back and try to catch those spots later on next snow event. So even with a 40,000-pound motor grader, sometimes it stops it dead. So.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councilman Schutte.
Depending on where the vote goes tonight, can we get a handwritten note from Rob assuring that he'll do his best, depending on how the vote goes, to keep it streets and avenues?
His word's good to me.
Well, I was actually going to ask, I mean, serious question, somewhat, Superintendent Bainan, but I am going to assume that you are all behind this because it will turn your department or some other city staff into much more of a public service announcement job, because I know that the citizens will expect that of you. And all I can say is, with the confusion among the council as far as understanding this, I can only imagine what it might be out there in the community. City Manager Mack?
I was just going to comment that should the budget be approved at the next reading, you know that it includes funding for a public information officer position, and they'll work very closely not only with the street division, but all of the other departments and divisions to make sure that we're communicating properly out to the community. So Rob's staff, Heath's staff will not have to be PIOs any more than they currently are.
I will say, I didn't even set that up with city manager beforehand, but I knew what the answer might have been. But in all seriousness, there are going to be some angry constituents who it's going to affect personally and deeply, because a lot of times people can't afford it. So, Councilman Bueller?
Thanks, Mayor. I would hope that maybe in a year's time or before next winter, we could review how this went. You know, just see how things went, see what kind of issues we ran into, and look at it one more time.
Good suggestion, Councilman. We'll include that on the post-season recap. Director Von Eye?
To that point, I was just going to add that as part of the Public Works Department, we're looking at initiating an accreditation process, and what that will do then is require us to do a continual look at not only this process or snow removal procedures, but the multitude of all the other functions that we carry out in Public Works. So to Councilman Bueller's point, absolutely, we will stay on top of this, not only for next year, but every year subsequent to that, and hopefully accomplish that accreditation for the community here over time as we put those policies and procedures together throughout the department.
All right, last call. Motion is to approve the amendment. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Schutte?
Nay.
Tupper?
Aye.
Bueller? Danforth?
Aye.
Helene?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We are on to item D1 and 2. We will take them separately, but we will take testimony conjointly. Number 1 is an approval of resolution initiating annexation of attractive land contiguous to the city of Watertown, South Dakota. Item 2 is second reading of ordinance establishing the zoning designation of R1 single-family residential district, R2 single-family attached residential, and R3 multifamily residential district. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, fumbling through the agenda here, trying to pull up the right information. So action number 1 before the council tonight is annexation of a tract of land on the easterly side of town. This is what would become known as the Lakes Willow Creek Second Edition. And then action number 2, of course, is the appropriate zoning of that land. Both the annexation and zoning action items have gone before the City Planning Commission. They've recommended approval unanimously at their August 10th meeting, and then subsequently for the zoning action, again, unanimously recommended on August 21st. We do have some maps that I'll pull up for context here. Bear with me. So as seen in the council packet, this area of land outlined on this particular map is the area in question. For context on where we're at, this is 3rd Avenue Northeast. If you continue west here, you'd run into 19th Street. And this is the location where the new ice arena is being built. And of course, we have 31st Street here on the east side of the Lakes Willow Creek properties. This south and easterly portion of land is part of the Lakes Willow Creek Phase 1. And then as we progress north into this subdivision, as it was preliminary planned, you'll see that it is in line with the prelim plan phasing and development. It'd be this portion up here because this map is drawn south on your left, north on your right. So it's a sideways version of what I was just showing you. But it's essentially this portion right here on this map that's being brought in for annexation and zoning. With that, Community Development Manager Hanton and myself can stand by for any questions. The subsequent action to this would be the plat that, again, we'll take action later, and we'll have some more detailed discussion on the development agreement of that plat. But right now, these first 2 items are simply the annexation and the zoning.
Thank you very much. Community Development Manager Hanton, do you have anything you want to add at this point? Okay, she's gesturing that does not need to speak at this point. I am going to take the testimony on both at one time since they are linked. We will vote separate, but at this time on items 1 and 2, which is the resolution of annexation and the establishing of the zoning, I'm going to open up a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? Just please say your name into the microphone.
Doug Allen, 204 Lewis and Clark Trail, which is just adjacent to this area. And I spoke with you previously on this issue, basically saying I don't have any issue with the annexation, but I do have questions primarily with regard to the roads in that area and how that's going to be handled. Since I last spoke to you, it appears that if you go straight out 31st to the north, it looks like they're developing another gravel pit there. There's a huge amount of earth being moved and gravel piled up and so forth. There is a lot of truck traffic on 3rd Avenue. I mean, a huge number of trucks, probably 50 or 60 a day go by there at least. And I don't see that slowing down. So my concern really is about what's going to be the approach of the city to handling that road, and then who's responsible for making a decision about that? Because I would think that north of Third Avenue is county property. That's not being annexed. It's currently being farmed. I can't imagine that they would bear half of the cost of the roadway. But I assume that the developer would bear maybe half of the cost of developing or paving Third Avenue. It's a complicated issue because right where it meets the city there, that Third Avenue up to 19th is actually crushed asphalt. I thought it was at least partially paved, but I was told the last time I was here that was not the case. It's crushed asphalt, and then they have a particular oil or something that goes on it that acts as a bonding kind of agent. But it's a very rough road. If you want to drive it, you can figure that out. You're not going to be going 35 miles an hour unless you're a teenager who they like to drive really fast. But that's my concern is, how do we handle that road? Is there an additional gravel pit being developed to the north there? And if so, what's that going to do to the truck traffic there? Because either they're going to come Third Avenue into town, depending on where they're going, or they're going to take 31st. And 31st is no picnic either if you've ever driven that. So that's my concern, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we could answer those questions now if we want to. Continue on with public. Actually, I'm going to continue on with public hearing. Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? Anyone else who would like to testify on either of these items? Excuse me. All right. I'm going to keep public hearing open for just a moment to give Mr. Allen a chance to make sure that his questions are answered. But Director Von Eye, there was a lot of questions there. I assume that they're going to go to you or Manager Hanton. And I have a lot of them written down, but I'll give it away to you, and then you do your best.
Certainly. I'll preface any answers at this point that a lot of the details of what's being asked is really in the subsequent action item regarding the plat and the development agreement. That development agreement is where the nuts and bolts are of the road responsibilities of the subdivision, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Pun unavoidable, I guess. The development agreement, though, does get into the detail on what the developer's responsible to build, and then specifically as it relates to Third Avenue. I can obviously give a heads up on what those items look like. And generally speaking, as a city develops on the outskirts of where our current city limits are, and we continue to expand into non-annexed areas, obviously we start bumping up into shared roads. And when I say shared roads, that means that they are currently either the state's jurisdiction, the county's jurisdiction, or even township jurisdiction. And right now, a vast majority of Third Avenue is in the county and is in the township's jurisdiction. That means that township out in this area, I believe this is Elmira Township, they are the jurisdictional authority over that road, meaning they're responsible for all the maintenance of it. Same as 31st Street on the east side of this subdivision. There are portions of 31st that have been annexed, but the vast majority of it are still unannexed and in the township's jurisdiction. So what does this mean as things develop? Well, as you see on this blue outline, J&J Land Development is anticipating bringing in their half of Third Avenue as we proceed with this annexation. So they'd be responsible for building their half. Oh, sorry, let me share this. Thank you for catching that. So here we are again with the blue outline that's proposed to be annexed and zoned. On the north side of the property where they're abutting Third Avenue, they'd be bringing in the south half of that roadway right away. And that's what the plat and the next action item would include is the south half of Third Avenue. The reason we don't bring the full street width into the city, one of the primary reasons, there's several logics behind this, but one of the primary reasons is then we then start to impact a neighboring landowner that otherwise has no knowledge, involvement, or interest in this development. And so we like to respect that and leave that land and their half of the road out of the annexation. If we were to bring the full right-of-way width into the city, this landowner now has to start signing a plat to dedicate right-of-way because they technically own to the center line of that road. So it just becomes more complex in carrying out the development process. So the city's practice has been in the past to only annex to the center line of the road. Fast forward a little bit further here, we've had discussions, lengthy discussions and considerations internally here at the city. What should we be doing with these half-road annexations? Should we be building out a half-street section? And times in the past, we've said, yes, let's do that. And so we've got a few half-road street sections in town. 2nd Street North West is one of the primary examples I can give. Since then, however, we've decided that it makes more sense to get that whole road done as often as we can through this development process. So in the development agreement, you'll see that for this portion that's being annexed, the city is agreeing to pay for the north half of this road being built. What we would then do is assess that cost onto the neighboring property owner, as we're allowed to do through state statutes, but we can only recoup that cost at the point in time when this land becomes annexed. So long story short, if this is annexed and zoned as is being proposed and we approve the subsequent plat and development agreement, 3rd Avenue North would get built out full width, but only for the length that's being annexed and zoned. So we would still have a gravel portion to the east, we'd still have a gravel portion to the west, and obviously that doesn't necessarily make good sense, but it does from a development standpoint where the development drives the improvements to these roads. If at some point in the near future the city wants to take over jurisdictional authority of the rest of 3rd to the east and the west, I'm 99.9% certain the township would not object to that. It's just that we would then have to figure out the funding of those road improvements to be assessed later on, some point down the road in the future when the other neighboring properties annex, because that's the only point in time we can start recouping those costs is once that adjacent land becomes part of the city. So there's a lot of, there's a big question mark for the rest of this stretch of 3rd and for much of the stretch of 31st that isn't necessarily answerable tonight. But what I can tell you with certainty tonight, this stretch of 3rd would be addressed, would be built out full width according to the development agreement that's in the subsequent council action.
Mr. Allen, if you want to say anything after hearing that, you sure can.
Thank you for that. I certainly understand what the issues are for you, but it would seem odd to me that we'd have a finished road for a little bit of 3rd Avenue and everything west of that stays as it is and everything east of it stays as it is. So, you know, you've got gravel trucks that would rumble onto a finished stretch of road, pound down that, and then move on to crushed asphalt and gravel. And it just, I get the dilemma that you have, but it just seems like odd that you wouldn't want to somehow figure out how to do 3rd Avenue, at least from 19th to the end of the newly annexed development. I mean, does that not make sense? I don't know. Maybe it does or doesn't, and maybe it all has to do with money. Thanks, Amanda.
Well, not to say the obvious, but we'll just go on to further public hearing. Is there any further public hearing? Just a second. No. Unless it's a question specific to Mr. Allen. Otherwise, but even then, I need to have official action. Chair will entertain a motion. I need a motion just on the approval of the resolution. Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Shetty. Okay, now, council, I'm going to allow any questions and comments regarding both 1 and 2, but when it comes time to vote, we will vote just on 1. I'm first going to go to Councilman Danforth.
Thank you, Mayor. This question probably for Public Works Director Von Ai, but when does that, I agree with the gentleman that was speaking there. I've got a lot of my notes there that says the same thing, and that's we're gonna have a paved road, and then we're gonna have gravel, and then we might have paved, and it really looks like a formula for a problem until at some point in time the whole road gets done, but far and away from being ideal. But when does that get triggered? And let's just go with what you've described, Heath, on that. So when would that get triggered for that portion of the road to go in?
The
What triggers
portion,
that?
the portion adjacent to what's being annexed, is that your question, Councilman?
Well, whatever part, yeah, I would guess that's the part that you said would be done, and then that to the east, that to the west wouldn't necessarily be done, right?
Correct. So that
So
would be.
when would that be triggered? Is it triggered at annexation? Is it triggered, when is it to be done?
Yeah, that would effectively be triggered in the subsequent council action when the council approves, if you were to approve the plat and the development agreement. Their plat identifies Third Avenue right-of-way being platted, and it also, the development agreement, per the approved construction plans, shows a series of roads being built in here, Third Avenue being one of them. So upon approval of that plat and development agreement, that starts the 2-year window that the developer has to build that infrastructure, which would include Third Avenue.
Okay, Mayor, can I have a follow-up question?
Yep, Councilman Danforth, you keep the floor until you tell me that you're done.
Oh, boy, don't say that.
Or I gavel you down.
I've been known to ask a couple questions now and then, but, so, Heath, going back to what you had said about, the city paying for the other half, and we know the problems that come with these half roads and stuff. We're dealing with that on North 14th Avenue, as well as some other places. But, how do we budget for that? I mean, as we've looked looking to approve our 2024 budget, we've looked at some capital planning going outward. Are we budgeting our cost share on that into those budgets?
Yes, we are. Assistant City Engineer Peterson has accounted for I know the number right in front of me. I believe it's to the tune of it's only about 160 grand for that north half to be constructed. That number is in, again, the subsequent council action items, and I can go back and pull that up, but that amount is accounted for in the 2024 CIP, because we knew about this potential before we set that budget for 24. It can easily be absorbed, is what I'm saying, into the 24 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Councilman Danforth?
No, that's it, Mayor.
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. Heath, do we have any idea what the cost might be if we did develop Third Avenue out to 19th? If the city took it on if we took it on ourselves to develop that little stretch, just kind of an estimate of what that might cost?
I was just getting some sign language from my esteemed colleague in the back of the room here, and I believe I'm getting an indication of somewhere around $4 million.
So he was going like this? Okay.
Assistant Engineer Peterson, if you wouldn't mind. And is that estimate for all the remainder of Third and 31st combined? I don't know if you could speak to that.
It's been a while since I've looked at these numbers, so I'm going by memory, but it seems to me like roughly that from 31st all the way to 19th was roughly $4 million. And since we're talking about it, 31st Street from Third Avenue South was a little bit more, just because there's.
Yeah, and I was only referring to that little section to the west section. You know, once this is built out, we've got that little stretch there to the west that wouldn't be developed.
Councilman, if I.
To 19th.
If I could, are you
I'm
talking all the way
talking
to
19th to where this development road would start.
So it'd be about half of that stretch, so a couple
yep.
$1 million.
All right. And then one other question I have is, would we consider ever posting no trucks on that, no truck traffic on there? Probably get killed, but I mean,
Yeah, I think you'd have.
just a thought.
I think you'd effectively impact some substantial businesses. To one of the questions earlier, yes, there is an active gravel pit being mined here off the northeast corner of 31st and 3rd. Similar to the gravel pit activities that used to go on in the Lakes of Willow Creek subdivision. And of course, to the east over here is our local asphalt company that operates, and they've got a lot of truck traffic in and out of their operations as well.
Councilman Beeler, anything else? Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this conversation. That a week ago, I went to the ice arena and I was in the center part of the community. And so I'm thinking, well, I'll take the 3rd Avenue route instead of going around to 212 and take the paved road. And it was about a week ago, and we had a lot of rain. And I guess I'm putting myself out there. It's probably going to get some people might question my driving skills, but it took me 10 minutes on that road. I had a 3/4 ton pickup with 4-wheel drive, and I had to slow down. Car was coming. Interestingly enough, the car made it through just fine. But I had to pull over a little bit, and all of a sudden I just started and I grew up on a farm, and I can tell I'm getting sucked into the ditch a little bit. So I stopped. Well, then that was even worse yet. And so then as I tried to go, I would continue to pull me, and I'd back up. I go forward, it pull me, and I'm slowly getting further and closer to the ditch. Now I'm praying, and so I'm just like, okay, I got to get out of the situation. And it took me forward and backward in trying to get out of there. And granted, the timing was terrible, I'm sure, because it just got a bunch of rain, but then you could just tell trucks or a lot of traffic, whatever it was on that road. And I didn't have any weight, of course, in the back. But what I'm saying there is, there's going to probably be, I don't think I'm the only one in the community that's going to have the thought process of, you know what, instead of going all the way around to 212, I'm going to take 3rd Avenue to the ice arena. And so, based off that logic, I guess, I thought that was logical until I got on the road, this is going to be an issue. I mean, this is something we do need to look into. And yes, the cost is going to be, what do you do? And then you got to wonder too about the truck traffic, what it's going to do to the road down in the years to come. But this is going to be an issue, so we do need to have this conversation, if not just tonight, on another night to talk about that. So that's all I have.
Director Von Eyde, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I would acknowledge that all great points made here this evening. I just didn't want it to be lost that staff certainly recognizes that having a segment of paved roadway in the middle of gravel and crushed asphalt is not ideal. The reason we've proceeded down this path with the developer is that we do get this section done now within the next 2 years under their development at a fairly reasonable cost. Development work on their end is, generally speaking, less expensive than the city going out for bid on projects. So if we can get this full segment done for this stretch, we've got a good chunk of 3rd taken care of. It's not all taken care of, and we realize that's not ideal. So I just wanted to make sure that point wasn't lost. The alternative mechanisms to build out the rest of 3rd or even 31st for that matter, Councilman Shetty is exactly right. That's an extensive discussion of funding. Dollars was mentioned. That's the primary driver on how we decide to move forward with these 2 streets. First, you have to address the jurisdictional authority, which again, I don't think will be an issue at all. But then how do we fund? We get them transferred to the city jurisdictionally, but then fund these improvements. And based on the current CIP demands, to extract those kind of dollars out of the current capital improvement plan, we're likely going to compromise the rest of the current city street network improvements unless or but for some alternative revenue sources such as bonding or other initiatives that we can come up with.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor will say aye, opposed say nay. Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Peters.
Aye.
Shetty.
Aye.
Tupper.
Aye.
Bueller. Danforth.
Aye.
Helene.
Aye.
Jurens.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the second reading of the ordinance establishing the zoning designation.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Peters. Open it up for any discussion on item 2. Hearing none, the motion is to approve the zoning designation. All those in favor will say aye, opposed say nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Peters.
Aye.
Shetty.
Aye.
Tupper.
Aye.
Bueller. Danforth.
Aye.
Helene.
Aye.
Jurens.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We're on to other business. 13A, an approval of a resolution on the plat of Lakes of Willow Creek, second addition to the municipality of Watertown, and authorize the city manager to enter into a development agreement. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Van Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned in the previous item, this is the plat that establishes all the lot boundaries within Lakes Willow Creek Phase 2. Again, I'll share my screen. And this plat, because it encompasses quite a land mass, it's in a few different segments. And here, this would be the southwesterly portion. Excuse me, let me scroll up. This encompasses the entire area as within this hash boundary. And these next few pages are what I'll scroll through. But this is generally what the lot configuration and road rights of way will look like. 28th Street ends roughly at this curve here. For context, I believe this is the area where the new Peterbilt business is built. And I apologize for that annoying pop-up on the map. But 28th Street would be extended all the way up into 3rd Avenue. And then there's, of course, internal street network as required by our engineering design standards and subdivision regulations. All the lot configurations meet all the zoning district requirements for those lot configurations. And then the subsequent phases of the plat just give a zoomed-in version of how those lots exactly get platted, along with the required easements and, of course, street rights-of-way. With this plat comes the development agreement, and also as discussed previously, the development agreement essentially is an agreement between the city and the developer to build all the necessary public infrastructure that would sustain the development of these lots, of this property. And so overarchingly, the development agreement is very standard. It gives the developer 2 years to install the water, the sewer, the storm sewer, the streets, the curb and gutter, and all the things of that nature. And the one exception that this development agreement has is what I mentioned previously. They agree to build the 3rd Avenue full width, and the city covering the north half of that construction of 3rd Avenue is what I would say would be the only anomaly or unique component to this development agreement. With that, unless I missed anything, Community Development Manager Hanton, we could both stand by for any questions.
Thank you, and you may do so after I take a motion to approve the resolution and authorization of the city manager to enter into a development agreement. Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Peters. Open it up for council discussion. Any questions? Any comments?
Here I do.
Councilman Tupper.
Public Works Director Van Eye, or maybe City Attorney Carrico, you could answer this, and it's not definitely toward this development, but in the development world, you got a two-year deal to finish the development with the development agreement. Where does the city stand at the end of a development when it's not finished?
Yes, Councilman Tupper, Mayor. The protocol in the development agreements, the form of recourse that the city has is to go out and actually perform the improvements and charge those costs back to the developer if they are not meeting their end of the agreement. That, of course, well, it all is linked to that 2-year window. They have 2 years to complete all the improvements per the approved construction plans. And if they're not doing that, then that's our only form of recourse per the development agreement.
Follow.
So let's just say I'm not, like I say, I'm not talking about this development itself. Let's just say there's a development and the city's got to step up and put $1 million or $500,000 in it to finish the development agreement. Where are we going to budget that money out of? So it's kind of a catch-22 is what I'm saying, so.
It is, and that's not a solid dollar amount that we have in our reserve in our capital improvement plan by any means. And so that would be an exercise of working closely with the city manager, the finance officer. I'm guessing it would come from some other reserves that we could extract it from in order to supplement the budget for that year. But that does become the dilemma in those situations, is coming up with the money to perform those tasks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Let's go to vote. All those in favor will say aye, opposed say nay. Finance Officer Rob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay, Peters.
Aye.
Shetty.
Aye.
Tupper.
Aye.
Bueller. Danforth.
Aye.
Pauline.
Aye.
Jurens.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. We are on to item B, an approval of the resolution of support on behalf of High Five Development LLC. Resolution application for state infrastructure funding related to the housing developments and authorizing the city manager and mayor to sign associated documents for the grant applications. City Manager Mack, how about I go to you?
That sounds great. Thank you, Mayor. This should be familiar for all of you. We had a special meeting last week or the week before, I can't remember now, to approve a similar resolution for the Benedictine Sisters. You've passed similar resolutions for J&J for similar housing projects. This is to help support their applications to the state for grant funding for these projects. Very routine, and we hope that their applications are successful.
Thank you very much. I don't have to do this, but I see a good friend of the city out in the audience, and I would like to invite Steve Thorson to come to the microphone. You don't have to say anything, but at the very least, maybe just an update upon how the development is going and what you hope to achieve with the money if you get it. And it's an exciting development, and I think it deserves to be hyped a little bit.
It is exciting. Steve Thorson, I'm with the High Five Development Company that is working on the Prairie Haven second edition is what we're asking for on this. We're just having a blast out there, you know. We've got 69 lots that we're working on. We've got currently 13 homes that are being developed right now we want to consider them affordable housing, and this is why we're going for some infrastructure dollars, you know, in the grants. It's just, it's a fun time, you know, and right now, my part of it is we're actually in the process right now of bringing in another 35 acres to the west, and then to bring those into Watertown, annex those 35, and then slide another 15 acres onto the 5 or 10 that we have left to put another 70 to 80 lots out there. So there's been a lot of interest, and it's a fun time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone will have any questions, but we'll open that up after I take a motion to approve the resolution and the authorization. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Jurens. Let's open it up for questions and comments, Council. Councilman Peters.
I just have a quick question. If we're talking about the $200 million housing infrastructure funds that were passed last legislative session, I was under the assumption that the grants were gone and now it's just low interest loans.
No, I don't think that's correct. I know that they actually have two how do I want to say that correctly?
Buckets.
There are. So the first ones were gone. I mean, they were taken by multiple cities and they're out there. But this is another actually a side sublet that they're working on that we're actually looking for dollars from at this particular time. So there are dollars available, and we would expect there will be there'll be some for Watertown.
Awesome.
City Manager Mack?
I also think that the low-interest loans require letters of support as well.
Councilman Peters, anything else? Councilman Tupper?
Well, I remember about 2.5 years ago when I got a call to go out and meet with you and Bill Riefenberger. I was just before I was back on the council, and kind of hear all your ideas. And the other day I drove out there, and it's really nice to finally see that hard work and vision trying to bring in affordable housing into Watertown to finally start coming to fruition. So I want to thank you guys for that.
And I would like to comment, Justin, it hasn't been a total picnic. Now, there's a lot of hoops and there's a lot of things you have to jump through, but the process of building the roads, getting the right depths on the roads, and if I may suggest, if you're going to build Third Avenue and you're going to have other trucks, maybe the city should put in additional dollars and make the road 6 inches rather than 4, to take care of those trucks and those issues. 4 inches of road is very expensive right now. We're finding that things, when we started, we did the TIF process, a little over $2 million. We're looking at probably a 20% increase over above and beyond of what we expected. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Steve, what's the timeline on getting, I know that it's ongoing and you've already talked about expanding. What is the timeline on completing like phase 1, phase 2, whatever?
We would expect that this year we'll only end up with maybe the 12 or 13 homes that'll be finished. Next year we expect to get another 25 to 30 homes put up that's our anticipation. So we'll be at 45. There's 69 lots there. So during the year of 25, we expect we'll be bringing in the other acreage, the other lots, the road construction, the infrastructure, all that we'll be putting in at that particular time. So by 25, that development there with the 69 homes should be full. And then we would expect to start putting in homes into the next one too. We're also looking at some other things. I know that the meeting that we were at just not too long ago at the GOS, and you had an economist there, and you were talking about different things. One of the problems Watertown has is, childcare. So we're actually looking at right now if there's the possibility in our next phase to do a little bit of a different zoning. The R1 is the primary zoning we'll be doing. But we'd like to put a daycare out there, that somebody can bring a business in and run this. We'll build the building for them. We'll supply everything that they would need to get that thing going. We think that a development like that can take that. You're going to have families, 70, 80, 90 homes. Hopefully they got a lot of kids out there that are coming to our school system, and these parents need a place to take them. So there's a lot of different things in the works that we're trying to do.
That's good news. Yeah, we are in desperate need of childcare. Any further questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution and the authorization. All those in favor will say aye, opposed say nay. Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Bueller? Danforth?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Item C is an authorization for the finance officer. Did someone want to say something? Okay. Item C is an authorization for the finance officer to establish an assigned cash account for the Ice Arena Bond Series 2022 C payments. Finance Officer Bob Zine.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, before the council, before I can move any money to an assigned account, council has to authorize that. So when we talked about the Prairie Lakes Ice Arena, part of all the donations and the sponsorships were going to go to support the bond we issued in $10 million. So essentially what this will do is I will take all of those revenues, I will hold them into an assigned account, and the bond payments, the annual debt payments, will be used to support that. So that's kind of what I'll be doing. So if you have any further questions, I can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize for the authorization.
Yep.
Motion made by Councilman Peters, seconded by Councilman Shudy. Questions or comments, council?
Mayor,
Councilman Danforth.
if I may, Kristen, is that a restricted account?
So it would not
What's
be,
that money? Go ahead.
so the only accounts that we can actually do restricted cash for are specifically any debt payments. As much as this is, we're basically saying that we're assigning these funds. So with your action tonight, those funds will only be used to support the debt payments. So it's not legally restricted, but it's definitely assigned by this council for that use.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councilman Tupper?
City Finance Officer. So once we do that, and this is just maybe a out of the ordinary question, can any future council change that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Motion is to approve the authorization. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed, say nay. Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Shudy?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Bueller? Danforth?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Item D is an authorization for the finance officer to establish an assigned cash account for the ice arena operations in Fund 201. Officer Bob Zine.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something similar. Back during the construction phase of the ice arena, Fund 504 had some remaining cash, which was basically transfers from Fund 212. It was determined at the time that a portion of it would go towards the construction, and we would hold back $1 million to support the operations in its first years. So essentially what this is doing is just taking that action and putting it on the books. The plan, as we went through the 2024 budget, supporting the Park and Rec Fund essentially by about $250,000 annually, I think is a good way to start. It kind of keeps us in what we were doing in previous years. So that's kind of what I'm setting forward. So at the beginning of each year, until the million's gone, I'll take $250,000 and put it into the park's cash to use to support the operations. So if there's any questions, I can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the authorization. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Jurens. Let's open it up for questions and comments. Any questions or comments, council?
Mayor, may I ask a question again?
Councilman Danforth.
Sending an ambulance here. My sugar overdose, I think, but, so, again, for Kristen, so the money goes in there, and let's just say the place just really does well. And the intended use of that money isn't necessarily, well, it's not needed in its full extent. So does that money, or can that money then be used elsewhere within the Park and Rec budget process?
Yes. Yep. Essentially that right now it's assigned, and at any time, if that would change the need for it, I would just bring it forth and we would basically kind of dissolve that assigned cash account, and it would go back into just the regular cash account of the Park and Recreation Fund.
But until that happens, it would be used specifically for the ice facility, ice arena.
Specifically, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the authorization. All those in favor will say aye. Opposed, say nay. Officer Bob Zine.
Okay. Peters?
Aye.
Shudy?
Aye.
Tupper?
Aye.
Bueller? Danforth?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Jurens?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Item 14 is city council announcements. Any announcements or topics for future discussion? City managers report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a few items. This coming Friday is the Observe Veterans Day holiday, so city facilities will be closed. A reminder that we kick off our council retreat tomorrow evening. You have your binders in front of you. If you would prefer that we bring them to the Goss for you so you don't forget, please leave them here. Otherwise, bring them with you. I did send out some information last week. If you could please read it ahead of time and be prepared for those discussions. I just wanted to let you know that last week, Watertown hosted the East River City Managers Group. We had managers, administrators, and staff from 7 different communities on the eastern side of the state in town last week. We got to take a tour on the trolley and see all the fun things that are happening in our community, and very complimentary of Watertown and your leadership and all of the really fun things that we have going on. And then lastly, if you were not able to stop by Oz last Tuesday, you missed out on a really great time, and we're grateful to everyone who was able to help participate in the Uptown Halloween event, and a special thanks to the great wizard, the mayor, for hanging out in the chambers and passing out candy and taking pictures with kids. So that's all that I have. We didn't. We didn't. Oh, I don't know who won the door contest. I feel like there needs to be a recount, so we don't know yet. That's all I have, Mayor.
We have the community development manager in the back saying that community development won, so that may or may not be true. Okay, well, she has the trophy, so we are going to call that a win. Congratulations. I voted. Anyway, okay. Nothing else on the report? All right. We do have a reason to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. The chair, we will not be taking any action once we are out. All those, I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Shetty. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is to go into executive session. All those in favor will please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. We are going into executive session, and I want council to, actually, we'll have about 5 minutes and then come on back. So otherwise, good night and God bless you, Watertown.